about TV and you're done. Hopefully we will get way beyond that discussion in this session. So there you go, Gary, take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, and thank you for that great introduction. We're going to be talking today about second screen, and I just have a little setup before the panel introduces themselves so that we could frame the conversation a little bit. So if you just bear with me for a couple of minutes. It certainly seems to be a year of the hashtag, with 85% of mobile users using a tablet or a smartphone while watching TV at least once a month, and as much as 41% using their mobile device daily while watching TV. Well, TV may never be the same. Also, this year we saw the likes of Nike's hashtag Make It Count campaign, Audi's Super Bowl, hashtag So Long Vampires, and the TV network HGTV created their own successful hashtag campaign, hashtag Love Home, that engaged 40,000 viewers, getting them to provide pictures of their home. So today we're going to have a healthy discussion on second screen. We have experts from all sides of this topic, agency side, network, social media, and second screen experts, plus representatives from the tech side that provide services that facilitate and distribute social content for second screen applications. We're going to discuss a few topics. First, we'll talk about the shift in consumer behavior. How big is second screen really? Beyond the use in major live events like the Super Bowl or the Academy Awards, how much is hype, how much is real? Have we really gotten to true scale yet? What works and what has not? Also, what is the real value to all the different second screen players? The networks who are deploying the second screen, the viewers and fans using them, and most importantly, the advertisers who are funding these efforts in the hopes of marketing value. What are some tangible examples? We'll talk to those, I'm sure. The panel will bring up some great examples that they have actually used. And what do we think second screen, where do we think it's really headed over the next few years? So with that, let me have each of the panel members introduce who they are and what they do, and then we'll get into some conversation.
Sure, thank you. David Beck. I head up social media at Univision, and I guess more important than knowing who I am, for those of you that are not familiar with Univision, we are one of the top 5 broadcast networks, and in February actually beat NBC, and we're the 4th largest, 4th rated broadcast network out there. And I'd like to give the perspective today a little bit about the Hispanic audience and some of the trends that we're seeing in terms of how Hispanics engage on mobile and on social. And I know many of the people on the panel here. I think it's going to be a good discussion.
Hi, I'm Tom Boland, and I'm an SVP at Ogilvy and Mather. Prior to coming to Ogilvy, I was at WWE, where I helped develop a lot of the sponsorship packages. And now at Ogilvy, I'm helping a lot of our blue chip clients identify the sponsorship packages to make sure that they're scalable and appropriate for the missions and goals they want to accomplish.
So I'm Jordan Kretchmer, the founder and CEO of Livefyre. We are a platform component, so we build social media software that integrates social and real-time applications into pretty much every site on the web. We work with a lot of publishers and digital media companies, a couple of whom are here on this panel with me, and we integrate a lot of second screen mobile app experiences from a technology perspective, so looking forward to having a discussion from that.
Hi, and I'm Scott Maddux. I'm General Manager for a new business division of Bottle Rocket. Bottle Rocket is a fairly large, big award-winning development team based out of Dallas. And the business I'm focused on right now is really around TV everywhere and or TV distribution to mobile devices primarily. Second screen is an important part of that. And just by a little additional context, prior to joining Bottle Rocket last year, I was running a joint venture called MediaSync, which was a JV between Nielsen and a company called Digimark out of Portland. And we launched the very first, I believe, the very first sort of true second screen apps building off watermarks embedded in the TV audio signal. We were launching apps like, we built the platform for apps like Grey's Anatomy Sync, which was Emmy nominated a couple of years ago, and it was interesting. So it's been sort of a long 3 years for Second Screen. We'll talk a little bit more about that.
Hi there, my name is Suejin Yang. I'm currently Vice President at Bravo Digital, overseeing content and product. As you guys know, we really focus on reality television, so active in the social space, Second Screen, always looking for opportunities to extend the story, deepen the engagement and experience for our viewers with talent and with the story itself, looking for, always open to experimentation.
Well, thank you, guys. I mean, the first question I want to bring up, and maybe, Tom, you might be a good person to start here, is we're just looking, tell me about the shift in consumer behavior. What has happened over the past, it's been a short period of time. It's only been, maybe a few years. But over the past year or so, what have you seen in the shift in consumer behavior in the use of Second Screen and application?
What we're seeing is people are interacting with content differently. A number of the panels today highlighted how people are watching TV with some type of device, whether it's their mobile phone or their tablet in their hand, and they want to be able to connect with those communities that are fans of those shows. So from an advertising perspective or an agency perspective, we're always looking for sponsorship packages that have a minimum of 3 screens. How can we engage with this audience in a very deep, meaningful way? Because there's so much clutter in the market space, we don't want the message to get lost. So one of the things that we're doing is, as we evaluate the proposals that come in, we know there's going to be the web presence, we know there's TV, what's the mobile, what's the social, how can we get more impressions? And then more importantly, as new developments come around the corner, how can we test them? How can we find it? They don't all necessarily have to work each time, but we want to be able to experiment to learn more about this all the emerging platforms and these audiences. Because when you find out what works, the audience appreciates it more and they have a stronger affinity for the brand, or at least that's the goal. So that's what we're looking for as we review sponsorship packages.
Yeah, one of the ways that I think it may be worth framing the discussion around Second Screen, if we look at the mobile space and sort of the apps, they tend to exist at several different tiers, right? So there are the individual show apps, sometimes the event-focused apps, so like Oscars, right, the Olympics, and there's a Second Screen experience that goes along with those shows or events. Take a step up from there, and you tend to see network-level apps, so Bravo, Showtime Sync, and then a step up from there are the apps that kind of run across all shows. So there's Vigil, Into Now, Shazam is going after this space. And I think sort of the fourth tier that sort of runs across all of that, and maybe the winner in the Second Screen experience overall, are services like Twitter, or even Wikipedia and IMDb. I mean, there's a lot of big numbers out there about what people are doing. Oh, yes, they have their device. Yes, they're engaged on that Second Screen, but are they actually engaging in Second Screen dedicated apps? Not so much, right? A lot of the experience is around Twitter. A lot of it is about going to IMDb to find out who that actor, that director is. So I think it's interesting to sort of understand the sort of tiering that I think happens in the market and where the real engagement is. And it's not always on the dedicated Second Screen apps.
Do you see an increase in Second Screen activity? I mean, like I know it's all started with hashtag, right? And it's Twitter and all that type of social activity. And I always wonder, how much of Second Screen is actually happening, and how much of it is somebody sitting and watching television and not necessarily interacting with a Second Screen dedicated to the particular effort that is there. I mean, how much of it is real Second Screen activity? You may know.
Well,
I'm sorry. We'll go.
Yeah, good.
So I was going to say, I'd like to, kind of feeding off of what Scott said, you have to break down, in addition to breaking it down in tiers of the kinds of apps that we see, you have to break it down in the kinds of content that we see. And a lot of people instantly think, when they think Second Screen, they think it's social. Obviously, it's coming from Twitter. Obviously, it's coming from Facebook. And in fact, when you break it down, all of the research shows that people are more influenced by Facebook friends and what they're saying about shows. They're more likely to watch a show that they saw from a Facebook friend than they are influenced by content happening on Twitter. So there's 3 different layers of kinds of content. And I would actually say the most important is editorialized or media company created content that enhances the experience. And so it's not just about social. It's how can you stream behind the scenes footage, get your audience closer to the characters via these second screen experiences. The second layer would be on-site interaction, people engaging with each other in comments or in chats around the event. And then the third layer would be social content from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, et cetera. So you have to sort of look at it in those three categories. In order to really understand whether it's really happening. And I think that the best companies out there are trying to fire on all cylinders, helping their audience feel more of a relationship with the shows, not just by aggregating a bunch of stuff haphazardly from Twitter, but by featuring personalized or more influential content for that individual.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I just wanted to jump in. I wanted to just sort of expand on what Jordan was saying in terms of really identifying the type of content and what the right second screen approach is, because you're seeing things like maybe bridge strategies between season. I think Scandal just announced that at the end of their finale, a personal favorite of mine. HBO did live Q&A sessions, right, post-episode, because the immersive experience, they didn't want to interrupt that immersive experience of watching a scripted show. We actually took second screen, we sort of pivoted and sort of moved away from that real-time nature with Transmedia and Top Chef. So the idea there is really to try and extend the storytelling onto multiple platforms with Top Chef. And just in terms of, so basically for those who aren't aware of that series, we extended the competition, the Honor competition, to a parallel online competition where Eliminated Chefs on Air got to compete online for a chance to win a spot back in the finale on air. And this year we happen to have a really great story. Our Last Chance Kitchen winner actually made it back into the finale and ended up winning the overall competition, which was great for us. But the thing that I thought was, that I just wanted to share is that in terms of moving the needle on second screen, because watching more cooking, providing more competition for this audience was so important, we actually were able to move the needle in that in our second season, we had a pretty epic multi-platform research study for our sponsor, Toyota. Our research team was able to identify that about 40% of the on-air audience actually watched the online series, and that was up from 26% the year prior. So I think, if you're picking the right strategy based on the show that you're working on or the event, you can really see that needle move.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think that your question going back to, is it at scale, and are we seeing increases? We're obviously seeing increases in usage, every day, every week. It's still not at a scale, I think, that, that everybody in the industry is dying to see. But what we've seen, the impact has been huge, is actually on video views. So we've seen a doubling of our video views when we've had these platforms up and running. And so I think I'm pretty okay with the number of users when I see a doubling of video views. So it goes back to why are you doing this in the first place? Are you creating a good experience for the audience, first and foremost? Because if you're not, they're not going to do anything you ask them to do. Once you've satisfied that, then is this an opportunity that an advertiser, could be brought into? Because if it fails at the first part, if it's not organic and integrated in an authentic way, it's going to fail, and it'll be a failed campaign for your advertiser.
And to build on that, obviously the impressions are very important to the advertising agency. But when you think about the primary experience and then the secondary experience, what's fantastic about the web experience or the off-screen experience is the ability for deeper integration. So to keep the shows authentic and organic, we understand the storytelling from an agency perspective of you don't want to do heavy brand placement. What's really interesting is on some of these after shows, a lot of the publishers are very open to either secondary characters. Comedy Central does a brilliant job of this with Workaholics, where they have a show called The Other Cubicle, where it's the secondary characters that will actually hold and eat products. And they'll give you we had them come in, I'm like, this is fantastic, because the people that love that show love those characters, and it's the core base, and they'll do stuff with the products that you normally can't get. So from an advertiser perspective, this is a unique opportunity that we can bring to a brand, because then you can use that content as exclusive content on the brand's social media platforms. So it's a win-win all around. You get more impressions out of it. It's, number one, a better experience for the viewer, but it also works for the advertising community as well.
And the one thing I'll say on the is it growing side that I think is important, to quick point, is that all the numbers say that 40, 41, 42, somewhere in there % of people are watching TV while they're on a second screen. The numbers that we don't really know in aggregate are how many of those people are checking email or just chatting with friends in IM, non-socially.
That's what I wonder. Right.
And there's no, I before the panel, I looked as hard as I could to try to find some statistics about what percentage of that 40% is actually engaging with additional show content or the second screen experiences for that show while they're watching. And I think that's probably growing, but probably not as fast as the overall number of people who are just checking email or doing other stuff.
And that leads to the next question that I have, which is, for the group, is what are the most important attributes of a second screen application? So if you're developing it, to your point, right now we're looking for ways to get consumers engaged. And the question is, to your point, how much of the 41% are actually engaging with the second screen? So what would be the most important attributes of a second screen, in your opinion, that would drive that number to the highest that it could be?
Content. It's
And
all
talent.
about content.
Talent participation.
Absolutely, yeah. And Bravo actually does a phenomenal job of this. And the app that Livefyre did with Bravo and BottleRocket actually as a developer, automatically determines the trends that are happening throughout the shows and displays social content that's relevant for right now for that show. So it's surfacing relevant content and then also surfacing content specifically from the Bravo celebrities, the people who are in the shows right now, not only just in general, but it determines the trends of what the top talked about celebrity is.
Can you say that again? The
Bravo
celebrities?
Bravo celebrity. So they're a customer, so I have to say it right, otherwise I get in
Never
trouble.
language.
And so the ability to focus in on what's relevant right now will actually make the app much more engaging. If one of the celebrities just threw a glass table at somebody, right, and the app is automatically surfacing the content around that trend and different memes around that trend, it's much more engaging than if you're still surfacing content generically from another celebrity who may not have as much content happening about them right now.
Yeah, there's I think you hit on something important, and one way we think about it is a lot of the second screen content and experiences we see today is kind of scraped together, right? So not to take a shot at ZBox, but they're pulling from IMDb, they're pulling from Wikipedia, they're playing off keywords and aggregating and sort of a shotgun across a broad array of programs, right? On the other hand, you've got these really deep experiences, which I think are definitely, they're more expensive, harder to execute, but that's where I think we see some real successes in terms of driving meaningful audience engagement. So one quick example, this goes back to an app we launched for BET, 106 in Park, and I feel it's almost a stale example because it's been out for 2.5, maybe 3 years now, but it's a good one because 106 in Park's video countdown show, it's on 4 days a week, and the VJs actually throw to the audience and say, if you've got our app, stand by because we're going to call you, we might call you now. And they've got a video map on the wall, and they know where people are on the map based on the app that they have on their phone. So they can light up on the map, actually hit a button, and call people directly. And then the flip side is you've got audience engagement voting up and down videos on the show. So it's a deeper integration. It's harder because the producers and showrunners have to be thinking about it, and the VJs on air are fully engaged. But the numbers bear out. There's very high rates of engagement around that. That's an interesting trend.
And are there applications beyond live events and personality-driven events?
Actually, I just want to jump in real quick with that. All of the comments here make a ton of sense, but from an advertising perspective and the brand perspective, it's really important that you educate your clients of what to expect. Organize the campaign by hashtag. Alert the social listening team and the social watchtower team so they can know what to look for, and then sit with PR and plan based on what are potential responses if people are positively affected or negatively affected by the experience. If you plan all this out, it goes really smoothly and you manage the client's expectations, all is good. If you don't, surprises pop up and the success of all the activity is lost because it's not organized.
Well, I mean, maybe you could take a step back a little bit, Tom, because you had talked about a strategy, having a social second screen strategy that was organized in pre, during, and post. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how you organize a campaign like that so that it actually does come off strategically the way you want it to.
So when we talk to advertisers about sponsoring a potential show, we break down a show into the 3 different phases of social TV: the pre, post, and the pre, during, and post. So what do you want to do for these 3 different phases, and how do you want to activate? So for one of the clients that we worked with, there was a live chat that we were going to do with a celebrity. So we knew exactly how many tweets this celebrity was going to be doing, and then we had to break down the activity and organize the activity. So there were the plugs. All right, we know the celebrity is going to make a plug. Let's make sure that it's WOMA compliant and they're doing all the appropriate hashtag sponsor messages that they need to so people know that it's a plug. But let's think about the viewer experience. We don't want to distract people from the show. So when should a plug go out? Probably during a commercial. When people are watching a commercial on TV, it would probably be more appropriate to get a plug from a celebrity at that point in time. During the show, you don't want to interrupt the activity that's going on with the show, rather you want to enhance it. So in our example, the celebrity was a judge on the show. And she had carte blanche to comment on the show as she normally would. But where the live tweets were taking place, we actually had with us 2 members of her writing team, plus the celebrity, plus we had the head of marketing from the client. So that way we could do real-time approvals to make sure that there was no confusion, no distraction whatsoever.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah. Was there a real ROI on that, do you think?
We were blown away with, when we started the campaign, we broke it into 3 different phases. There's the paid, earned, and owned media. And going in, I mean, you know what you're going to get for the paid impressions because that's set up in advance. The owned impressions, you know how many fans you have, and historically, you know, you may see a little bit of a bump here or there. The wild card was the earned. And how do we really organize all this? So going back to the first phase, we wanted to promote that this event was coming because we wanted to do 2 different things. Not only alert the celebrity's fan base that she'd be having this unique experience, but we also wanted to identify influencers. So who else could help expand the reach of this campaign when she would retweet, when she would comment? Who else could she pull into the conversation to really generate the impressions? And all of it had to be organized by a campaign hashtag so we could measure it. We were blown away with how well this worked. And then what we did at the end, so we kind of broke it down. Pre-promote before the show starts, during the show, answer fan questions, real-time chatter, and then during commercials, do the plugs. And then at the end of the campaign, we alerted people to drive the traffic back to the advertiser's page with exclusive content. So the publisher gave us content, and we let everyone know, if you go to this landing page experience, you can see behind-the-scenes footage, but you have to flock to unlock it, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, where based on the amount of social activity, it would unlock all the exclusive content, and everything worked really, really well.
And was this a digital-only buy, or did it have?
No, cross-platform. It was primarily a TV buy that we surrounded with digital.
Because I think that's, I mean, just one of the other keys is that, you know, if it's a buy and after the fact, it's what can we do in social? What about this second screen? I mean, that's where you have the challenges because you haven't, thought about the audience and what's relevant, what's likely to resonate with them, and then you're trying to retrofit a campaign, and of course there's actual cost to doing some of this stuff. So that's one of the watch-outs, I think, is just making sure that you are having these discussions in the beginning.
Well, and you miss out on opportunities for direct conversion right when it's happening. I mean, probably the biggest benefit of a second screen experience in any form factor is the ability for advertisers to drive instant conversion where people can actually interact and engage with the brand further. And, you know, if you tack it on at the end, you're completely missing out on that opportunity.
Right, and there's a couple of ways to do this. I mean, Suejin, you talked about multi-screen storytelling. So maybe you want to just talk a little bit about that because, like, to your point, if you're thinking about a multi-screen storytelling scenario from the network side, then you're going to build in all of your components in advance and they'll have more meaningful application, I would imagine, in the end. So maybe you just talk a little bit about how you guys do that.
Well, okay, so our transmedia efforts, very, very high level of effort. We are working with the on-air content production teams from the beginning to plan out the flow of the content. Because the advertiser is so integrated, we need to, that sort of changes the sales cycle. As David was sort of saying, you know, with your sort of standard second screen sponsor package, you sort of have templates maybe that you can sell, but when you're talking about multi-screen storytelling, you really need to involve them from beginning, understand what role, in this case, Toyota would play in the Top Chef and Last Chance Kitchen stories, and then figure out what the layers of interaction are. So we have the on-air, main show. We have the online sort of parallel competition, which in its first season was sort of a secret, so that sort of played into the storytelling as a surprise when the Last Chance Kitchen winner entered into the season finale that first season. The cat obviously was out of the bag for season 2, but for season 2 then, the idea was, okay, let's get fans, let's allow them to participate. So we added a layer called Save a Chef. So eliminated chefs from the Last Chance Kitchen series fans could actually socially vote for them. And basically we're then able to rally our chef testants, term number 2 from Bravo. Believe me, I had to learn all this too. So our chefs, got out there, rallied for themselves.
Bravolicious.
Very good. And that then provided a great foundation that was very organic to the overall experience because they were, trying to get their fans to vote them back into Last Chance Kitchen so they can then win that, make it back on to the main show. So, I think, and even with that, we then added a social media correspondent. So we got a former chef, testant, Chris Crary, to essentially, quote unquote, live tweet each episode of Last Chance Kitchen as we rolled it out each week. He also interviewed the eliminated chef testant on Twitter, same time each week. So we're really trying to build, behaviors with our audience and be consistent.
So you sort of need a different type of producer, right? A type of producer who thinks about multi-screen simultaneously and isn't sort of anti-second screen in all the efforts going out, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was a very, I would say the transmedia efforts, there's a new one coming in July with Top Chef Masters, but it really is a very different approach that we take for those particular.
Tell me about the advertisers. Really, I know that you had one great experience and there's a good experience for Toyota, but do you feel that the advertisers are really getting the value out of second screen in this day and age, or is it really still in a very preliminary test and learn, but not necessarily gain return on investment?
I think these are still very experimental days, and second screen is a grand experiment still. And yes, there are successes, and there are a few pockets here and there. And I'll go back. We launched My Generation with ABC 3 years ago. The show tanked. 2 episodes. We turned the crank twice real fast, but we got a second screen app up and running. We then recalibrated with Grey's Anatomy Sync, and we had Lexus on board as a sponsor. And they were great. So what would happen, this was a top-down feed, synced with the show, whether you're watching in real time or time shifted 3 days later. And when the ad break hit, you got a Lexus, and they had run-of-app sponsorship. So splash screen, persistent logo, and when the ad break hit, a Lexus-branded experience appeared on the tablet. Really rich. We saw very high rates of engagement. Effective click-through rates, 10 to 20%. 100 to 200 times greater than an average banner, right, or display ad. But at the end of the day, what did ABC do? They decided not to pursue second screen. Really, they do the Oscars app, and that's great. They do a little work around the Olympics. Oh, that's NBC. Excuse me. But the ROI just wasn't there, and not yet. Now they remain interested, and I think we all believe deeply, I do, in the power of the moment. All of this is sort of predicated and built in this foundation of what happens in the moment is powerful, it's dramatic, it's when we lean forward, it's when we tweet, and it's valuable. It's when the contestants jump in that Toyota Prius and they go to Whole Foods. Those are commercial moments that are valuable as product placements. And of course, the ad breaks are valuable, right? And it's a holy grail if we can harness that.
Why was
not happening at scale.
Why did they feel there wasn't return on investment? It was just the cost associated with
go
doing
back to the producers, right? It took 2.5 producers for one show, let's go Grey's Anatomy, but it wasn't, they weren't able to sell sponsorship and advertising to a degree that really paid for itself. I think it'll get there. This was 2 years ago.
Right.
But they ran the calculus and said, not yet. We're not going to do it. And they haven't
part of
really
that
jumped
has-
back in.
I would assume some of that depends on the production value too and the type of show. So there's certain shows that may lend itself to being
True.
a bit more efficient and a stronger likelihood for an ROI directly from second screen because of the cost to produce. But I still think that without tying second screen directly to what you're doing on first screen, okay, and as part of the broader package, then you're missing the value. And I will go back and just simply say, I think there are definitely more opportunities for advertisers on first screen related to social. So, whether it's an award show that we're doing and there's red carpets, up the wazoo these days, we give our audience the opportunity to ask questions directly to the stars on the red carpet. We take them via social. We bring them up in lower thirds. We can put an advertiser against them, connecting, hi, I'm L'Oreal, connecting, so-and-so with their favorite artist on the red carpet. Making up that brand, by the way. But, just for that particular example, but that's exactly the type of thing where there's still opportunity on the first screen, because that's an example of one where it's organic. It's what you would expect, but it's coming from the audience's mouth, not Ryan Seacrest or another announcer there. So you're replacing that banter with actually giving the audience a chance to engage.
Well, and so what's interesting to me as we talk about how this all benefits advertisers is I think the best example of a second, quote unquote, second screen experience actually isn't really a second screen experience. It's HBO Go, right? They've turned every screen into the screen. And the interesting thing about it is that advertising doesn't play a role in HBO Go because HBO doesn't really, do advertising. And same with Showtime, right? For that matter, the Show Sync application, which time shifts itself to determine what content to display at what time, not based on a live event, but what Showtime and HBO and all these the cable channels that don't really do advertising have realized is that time-shifted viewing is actually growing at the same percentage as second screen experience viewing, right? And so the fact that you should be able to watch a show and get whatever content is relevant for you right then, not necessarily because you didn't watch it live, is interesting. And this sort of plays into this idea of like how do advertisers become effective in an environment where the best experience, right? Currently today, the best experiences are happening without them. And I think the big trick that we have is to figure out how to integrate them. And to David's point, the biggest opportunities still are on what is called the first screen.
Well, explain that for the room and for me. Explain to me the HBO Go experience in a little bit more detail so we understand.
It's all about content, 100% about content. And social stuff the social stuff they're bringing in is relevant to the content. Right.
Think of it this way, right? All the use cases that we've touched on up until this example have been second screen. I'm here with an app running here, whether it's Twitter or a dedicated app, and then I'm looking up and watching my show. It's like this, right? It hurts. HBO Go is about delivering the programming to the tablet, right? The primary viewing screen. So think of the second screen in a sense as concurrent media. So we're actually starting to talk a lot more about concurrent media. So that's the Game of Thrones experience. I'm watching the episode right here on the tablet, and I'm getting the bonus material in context, right? In the moment.
It's like a new version of a pop-up video from VH1.
It is.
Like it's.
But now there's another key, I think, point here, and that is that these TV Everywhere apps, right, delivering straight video to mobile. This is the core consumer value prop that the market is responding to, where I see the second screen app seeing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of downloads, maybe very low millions. We're immediately hitting with the major network brands and their TV apps, right? Their flagship distribution apps are driving millions and millions and millions of downloads and millions of views. And I see second screen, in a sense, as concurrent media delivered in that context. I think that's actually one of the macro trends here that is very, very promising, as opposed to the sort of standalone second screen.
Yeah, and that's exactly the model that Univision took with the launch of Uvadeos, which is both our on-demand bilingual digital video network, but also our second screen app, so that you can actually have synced content. And we had to take it a step further because, again, going back to making sure you know your audience. Our audience, we have 90+% live viewing in prime time. That's insane. Okay? But when our audience chooses to binge, which I'd say they're binging if they're watching 5 days a week at 90%, the last thing they want when they go on demand are spoilers out of social media. So our social stream, when you're watching on demand, is time synced to the content when it aired. So if it airs tonight at 8 p.m. at 8:05, I make a comment about it. Tomorrow, someone comes in 5 minutes into the show, they see my comment. They don't see a stream of social comments that are happening, the day after. And I think that's, again, where if you're an advertiser, do you want to be associated with spoilers, or do you want to be associated with bringing them a social experience that's actually additive and makes good sense for you while you're watching the show then and there?
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the future of what we're calling second screen, because it seems like where it may be going is more in sort of concurrent media. In other words, things happening, multi-screen storytelling, if you will, simultaneously on the same screen. It's sort of like, to take it back to just traditional advertising, when I worked, believe it or not, when I worked on CNN and headline news, it was blasphemy back 10, 15 years ago to have more than one piece of information on the screen at the same time. If you look at headline news or any news outlet today, you're consuming 15 different pieces of information simultaneously, and we all accept that. And I would imagine that in entertainment content, we're going to move in that direction. Is that fair to say? And how do you think that will happen?
I personally don't think so, and I hope not, right? The thing with news is there's so much happening in the world around us now, and there's so much access to find out what's happening in any region of the world that you need to display more. When I'm sitting there watching Game of Thrones, I'm watching Game of Thrones.
But no, okay, so now you just talked about the HBO Go, right? So what is the information that they are putting on simultaneously that you were referring to?
Non-disruptive optional content that I can access by pausing and going and looking and getting right. So when I said, I joked about, it's sort of like VH1's pop-up video.
Right.
There are some key differences, which is I'm still in complete control of the experience. If I'm watching HBO Go and I don't want any other crap, I don't have to see any other crap. Right, and but if I want to tweet at one of the characters on a reality show, I can swipe over, I can click on the character, and I can tweet at him. Right, but if I don't, I just don't interact. And so that optional experience that is non-disruptive to the core content. Again, I go back. It is all about content. That hasn't changed in 100 years. It's all about content. And the more advertisers disrupt that content, the more people are annoyed by it, which is why how advertisers integrate with it and bring you the stuff that you want. And David mentioned how we present content on the first screen in a way that allows brands to get involved without disrupting what's going on is very, very important. So I don't, to answer your question directly, I do not see entertainment content going the same direction as news.
I think. Oh, go ahead, Suejin.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in. I mean, I agree with Jordan on many fronts. I also think, though, again, it does come down to content fit. So, if it's a live show, for instance, liveness, reality. I'm going to bring up our Play Live initiative, sports, exactly. Yeah. So with Play Live, it's. I agree with you for scripted, and but for Play Live, I think it's an opportunity that people call participation TV. So ultimately, might there be an opportunity for fans, given the show? So with us, it's Watch What Happens Live, and we're asking things like, who do you think's going to win an arm wrestling match? Brandi Glanville or Kristen Cavallari from The Hills, right? Mm-hmm. Brandi's from our Housewives of Beverly Hills franchise, and then we see them arm wrestle actually later in the series. So it's fun things like that I think.
That's Bravo-tastic.
And so I think that again, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing, and depending on the opportunity, I think there can be a right fit. I absolutely agree, though, it shouldn't be forced. And I think the way that we make it, interesting for our advertisers is we're able to then extend that engagement over commercial time on air. So we can customize. So I think Old Navy got involved. Brad was their spokesperson for the commercial, and we had users voting on his question of, how do you make the spring dress pop, and basically using various Old Navy items users could weigh in at home. And there are other activation opportunities in that platform.
And sort of on that same front, the Kentucky Derby just launched a new mobile application that actually happens to also have been built by Bottle Rocket using Livefyre social streams coming into it. And what was cool about it is being able to, this truly was an experience where you're watching this quick race and you see the tweets coming in and you can see at a glance what horse the Twitterverse thinks is going to win, which is really, really interesting. And so there definitely are places for that sort of interruptive, a little bit more secondary or parallel experience. So I do agree with you that the reality, real time, happening now, sports, there are opportunities that do enhance the viewing experience. I hope it never happens for scripted shows.
So might be a good time to take some questions from the audience. Yes?
Let's see. Do we also have Mike in the back? Yeah. Okay. Hold on. We'll go here, and then we'll go to you in the back.
James Lee, I'm analyst at CLSA, our investment firm here. Based on what you say, it seems like second screen, social TV at this point in time is very, very experimental. Not a lot of ROI at this point in time. Is it more suitable for organic campaign versus paid campaign? If ROI and measurements are in the game to scale, and there's nothing available, I was wondering, do you see any kind of measurement that's coming to a horizon going to help you out to measure the ROI, or is it going to play a very complementary role to TV advertising in general? Thanks.
I think it's the combination of looking, again, by itself. I don't think there's many people buying it by itself, right? So you're buying it, you're getting scale with broadcast TV as an example, and then you want high level of engagement, maybe a niche audience within that overall focus. You're going to get that on the second screen.
Yeah, and I come back to video. It's the core value prop to the consumer that really drives scale is programming. It's the shows themselves. So it's not the augmented second screen material, but the programming itself. So sort of the TV Everywhere apps, right? Those primary distribution apps, those are going to operate at scale. Nielsen is working on providing measurement for those. It doesn't really exist today. There's some early work going on in that field that is critical to really tapping into sort of the full-blown $80 billion television advertising market. We're not quite there yet. I do believe that will start to open up over the next 12 to 24 months, and certainly measurement and Nielsen ratings are going to be play a role there.
Hi, my name is Forbes. I'm with TrialPay, and I had a question more along the lines of connected TV, and I would love to hear both the brand side and the agency side. Maybe maybe if I could have Tom's view, and then also Univision and Bravo's view. Where you see connected TV going on the ad tech side, and how you plan on leveraging it alongside your social buy. So when it comes to TV and social, where is that going? And I guess how you guys see that playing out in our space.
In 5 seconds or less.
Something like that. Thanks.
That's a good question. In terms of how connected TV is going to impact future media buys, an open question is, how does that change the ad opportunities for us? What's going to come across? How does it augment the programs that we currently have? It's a difficult for me to give you an exact answer on right now. I can tell you that we're watching the developments on all the TVs, and from an agency perspective, we go out to CES so we understand what's coming and what's around the corner. But in terms of unique opportunities, we haven't seen anything kind of come across the table yet where it's a consistent approach from multiple parties. So I think the agency answer is we need to see how the publishers are going to use it and what opportunities it's going to present to us before we pick the one that we want to trial.
Nothing's operating at scale. Connected TV has been a huge story at CES every year for 4 years. And it used to be called interactive TV. And the joke is, interactive TV is the future and always will be. And I still think it's true. It's just not there yet. And they're connected TVs, yes, they've got Wi-Fi, they're on networks, and nobody's really engaging at that level.
Segways.
Yeah, they just look so dorky.
Connected TVs, the problem with them is they're really hard to interact with. And it all goes back to content, right? People just want content on the TV. So anyway, you didn't ask for my opinion, but I'm going to give it anyway. An example in our world is American Idol. So American Idol, 2 seasons ago, had barely any social interaction on their sites. They were driving all social interaction to Twitter and to Facebook. And this past season, they used social to actually drive engagement on AmericanIdol.com. And for the first time in a few years, we're actually able to drive value out of additional advertising sponsorships on AmericanIdol.com versus just big package that, hey, you're just going to get a plus up ad on our site just because. And so they were able to use the fact that there were over 200,000 comments during the last 2 days of the season finale on AmericanIdol.com, and they were able to use that to actually drive advertising spend on their site in this season.
And why they decided to make those comments on .com is because of the content and everything that was around it.
Exactly.
It created a better overall experience than to sit there by yourself simply shooting out a
I think the things to watch in the interactive or in the connected TV space, watch Xbox. Honestly, it's not the connected TV per se, but Xbox will deliver the user experiences that will, I think, ultimately migrate to connected TV. Roku's doing some really good work here. I think Apple TV will launch later this year, and we will see some really interesting experiences.
Xbox is definitely leading the charge, though.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's awesome they're going to charge, though. But anyway. So
Somebody's got to pay for it.
I think that's it. I think we're done. But thanks a lot, guys. Please give them a round of applause.
Thank
I'll
you.
stand in the light here. So you guys get to exit over there, unless you want to stage dive, which I don't suggest. So